Chris, there was something you wrote about not long ago that I really appreciated. I want to make sure I brought this up while we were here. It was the idea of losing heroically. Would you mind elaborating on what that is and what that means and how it can be helpful to someone who's currently losing miserably rather than heroically?
Yeah, I mean, so when I think about losing heroically, I think one thing that comes to mind for people is like everyone says, okay, to lose, you have to like leave it all on the line. And I agree with this, but I think that when we think about leaving it all on the line, it's not just like showing up and competing and trying really hard. The worst feeling that you can have after a competition or anything in your life is regret. And I think about regret a lot too. Like I hear people say like, I want to live with no regrets. You need to feel regret so that you can learn to perform and to prepare in a way that is going to like lead to fewer regrets. So losing heroically is when you go into a competition or anything in your life and you are prepared to fail and you are comfortable with failing. So like my mindset coach, Mindset Mike, we did this thing before the competition, before CJI, where he had me like write down all my fears about what could happen. And I had to burn the paper, burn the fear. So like there's no more fear because you burned it away. So I think that's what I think about when you lose heroically. It's like you burn the fear and you're ready to just like go into the competition and let it all go.
Welcome back to the BJJ Fanatics podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Ford. My guest today is a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He was also a purple belt no-gi world champion. As a brown belt, he was a Chicago Open champion in both gi and no-gi. He's also a Jiu-Jitsu Con no-gi brown belt champion and a Houston Open champion. He's also an Ignite Grappling Grand Prix champion, and he was a member of the B Team roster that recently won CJI 2. He's become one of the top writers in the jiu-jitsu community. He has a very successful blog on Substack called The Grappler's Diary, where he shares tons of insight and advice for all things jiu-jitsu. He's also a very respected teacher, teaching at a B-Team Jiu-Jitsu in Austin, Texas. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to be joined today by Chris Wojcik. How are you today, Chris?
Doing very well. Like I just said, I've listened to this podcast many times. So like, and I don't listen to many jiu-jitsu podcasts. So it's like cool to be on a podcast that I would listen to in my free time. So thank you for having me.
That means a lot, brother. Thank you so much, Chris. I think that you give back in such a big way with your blog and on your Substack. You have such great content to share with people. And I love watching you compete too, man. You're an animal. So I'm stoked to have you here and I'm looking forward to hearing your story. Chris, since you've listened to the show, you know the question I always start with. Tell us about where you're from originally and what life was like before you started jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, so I started jiu-jitsu at 17. So I'm from Chicago area. I was born in London, but like my family moved quite a bit when I was a kid. I started jiu-jitsu in high school. I wrestled in high school first, not like well. I always like preface that because like people assume if you wrestled that I was like some state champion or something. I was not. I was on the team. I was okay, but like not a remarkable wrestler by any means. And then when wrestling ended, I was like, oh, I want to try, some sort of like, I heard one guy did boxing. So I was like, I want to try boxing. And I had no idea that it was completely different from jiu-jitsu, like in every way. And so I ended up trying boxing. And then the gym that I tried boxing at also had a jiu-jitsu program. And so I tried a jiu-jitsu class and I was like, I think this is more my speed. And like, I had that kind of like feeling of like, if you come into a jiu-jitsu class as a white belt with like 5 years wrestling experience and you go with someone who's been doing like 6 months of jiu-jitsu, you can kind of hold your own, even if you don't know anything. And so I was like, oh, I bet if I worked really hard at this, I could get pretty good. And that was when I was like 17, 18. I trained around a little bit. I started training in Chicago with my original coach, Jeff Seraphin. I ended up moving to the Pacific Northwest for about a year, living in Oregon. Then I moved back home, and then I ended up training with Jeff all through college, all through till I moved out to B Team in 2023. So like quite a long time, like basically 2015 through 2023 was with Jeff Seraphin in Chicago, and he gave me my black belt in 22, and then been in B Team ever since. I moved down to B Team just for, I still like have a great relationship with Jeff. I literally texted him this morning, we're talking this morning, we talk every day, but that's like my original coach, and then I represent B Team in competition, train with those guys, and I've been down here for about 2 years.
That's incredible, man. So cool. You know, I have to laugh when you mentioned about the sort of caveat that you have to tell people when you wrestled that like you didn't wrestle at a certain level. Cause I think that a lot of people, when they hear you wrestle, they assume, oh no, okay, that could be anything from middle school to like D1. So where does this guy land? And but I think that, man, one of the greatest things, even if you just wrestled in middle school or high school, I think one of the best things that wrestling does for people is it just gives you so much competition time on the mat. Because you compete at meets and you train so much and you compete so much. Did you find that because of the hours you logged in wrestling, it was a pretty smooth, less anxious introduction to competing in jiu-jitsu once you started competing?
Definitely. I think that jiu-jitsu I think when we come into jiu-jitsu competition, I think a lot of beginners, especially, they tend to think, oh, it's my competition and this is the most important thing and I'm going to do this training and this tournament means so much about me and whatever. And when you're wrestling, you compete so frequently. Like we would have dual meet Friday, we would have tournament Saturday. In the off season, it would be like a tournament every week. So it's like you're competing. Like my senior year of high school, that was the year I took wrestling the most serious. And like I said, I never made it to state or anything, but I tried really hard. And in the trying, I competed, like I had 100 matches my senior year of high school. And that was like I think it took me like 3 years to hit 100 matches in jiu-jitsu, and that was like competing a lot, you know? So I think that just having all of that mat time, competition mat time especially, is super valuable, and it's hard to get in jiu-jitsu. So I think that like that made like I think the two things that I took from wrestling is the competition thing, that like just easing competition anxiety, and then two, just like learning how to work hard, because like wrestling, the culture is very much like you just grind through whatever, and like that's a good thing to have, I think, in jiu-jitsu, especially as a beginner, when like the way that you like I always tell people, like the way that you get better at jiu-jitsu, like I always joke, like the way you get better at jiu-jitsu faster is quit your job, you know, and just do jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
But like the reality is you just need a lot of mat time, you know, and wrestling taught me that as well.
Yeah. I always appreciate people like like you said, it is harder to do in jiu-jitsu, although it's gotten better in recent years just because of the frequency of tournaments and the growth of the sport, that depending where you live, you can compete like at least every month, and that helps. But man, wrestling, just like, man, like you said, it's like every Friday. It's almost just like an extra training session. They treat it like it's an extra class, but there you are competing against, you know, someone from another school. So let me ask you this, Chris. Obviously, you have great guard passing. We saw that on display at CGI too a little bit. But I think a lot of people think of you as a really, really high level guard player. How did the transition from being a wrestler to a high level guard player play out for you?
I think it's interesting because it was sort of like when I came into jiu-jitsu, I wanted to be like a Nicky Rod kind of guy, you know, like wrestle everybody and like rear naked chokes and like, you know, crazy passing. And like when I got more into jiu-jitsu, that was like this was before Nicky Rod was even, I started I think like 2 or 3 years before he did, but like that was the vision, was like the guys who take everybody down, pass the guard, submit. And then what would happen is I was competing in the gi, and so I competed in the no-gi worlds, and I took third, but I didn't even like know the rules, you know, and like that was like a big moment where I was like, okay, I can do jiu-jitsu quite well. If I just like, maybe what if I learn the rules, maybe I could take first. What if I like learn technique, I can win this tournament and submit people. But then the next year, because this was back in 2016, 2017, when everybody was doing gi and no gi, there weren't very many specialists yet. And so I did the gi pans like 6 months after I did the no gi worlds, and I lost first round because I got swept. And the guy just grabbed my gi and sat down, and I was like, okay, now my wrestling doesn't matter. And then that kind of led me to learn about like, okay, you have to play this like double pull game so you can win because some guys, in a blue belt tournament, you're not going to pass the guard in 6 minutes on a really good guy, you know? So I was like, if you can't beat them, join them kind of thing. And like starting just using the double pull to like play the rules so I could get on top with an advantage instead of getting on top, you know, tied. Then I was like, okay, but also like if I play guard, I can submit more. I can sweep, I can, you know, control the pace a little bit. And then like I just did gi guard for like years. And then that was kind of like Keenan was my favorite grappler back in the day. So like watching lapel guard and all this stuff. And I found that I really enjoyed the intricacies of like the technical side of the guard. I'm like rediscovering that joy for like passing and wrestling now. But like when I first fell in love with jiu-jitsu, it was like the technical side of the guard that I really liked.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's funny. Like one of the most difficult people to train with or to compete or roll against is a wrestler that has now learned how to use a guard too. Like when they first show up, it's kind of like, all right, cool. I can put him on his back and he's kind of lost. But then by the time they hit blue belt, it's like, God damn, now he knows the guard. Now he's like good passing, good pressure from top, good balance, hard to sweep, and also an efficient guard. What would you say was your first specialty that you had once you started playing guard? Was there a particular position or technique that you really relied on heavily early on?
Yeah, so I think that like I started playing lasso guard. That was like the beginning. And I found like I didn't know that, like I think guard allowed me to capitalize on some attributes that I didn't know I had in wrestling. Like I'm very flexible, and I didn't know that because there was never a reason why I would have to be like crazy flexible. Like I was never getting put in the splits. I was never getting put in like positions where I have to use like hip dexterity super often, like maybe just sprawling. I always had a good sprawl, but like that was the main thing, you know? And then with the guard, I was like, okay, my retention for lasso because of the pummeling and all this stuff was very good. And then, like I said, Keenan was my favorite guy back in the day. So I used to watch like Lapel Encyclopedia and Keenan Online and stuff like that. And watching that led me to like lapel guard and worm guard. And so I got really into that. And I was like the guy on the purple belt scene who was like lapel sweeping everybody. And then, it was funny because then when I transitioned to Nogi, it was like I didn't have my best guard anymore, but like just, the same kind of principles applied. So it's like you can't really play squid guard in Nogi, but you can use K guard, which is like similar body position, just with a like less maybe security because you don't have the lapel grip, but like you have very strong connection to your partner. And then same thing like lasso, you can't really sweep with a lasso in Nogi. Like you saw, I think Pato did it at CJI or somebody did it at CJI, but like it's not frequent, but you can use it for retention. So like when I went against Mika at CJI, I was like using the lasso movement that I've been using for 10 years in the gi. And then just like now it's just more of a retention tool trying to go into other things. So like more of a open guard game. So like a lot of lasso pummeling, a lot of K guard, stuff like this is like stuff that I've used a lot over the years.
That's awesome. Yeah, it really is cool to see that translation to no-gi, because I think a lot of people assume automatically if you don't have lapels or sleeves or collars that anything you're doing with that is just now out the window and gone. But like you've highlighted here, I mean, a lot of the general principles and mechanics are still there. Off balancing, and there are alternatives that you can do. So your skills that you've built in the gi based on gi specific things aren't completely in vain. So yeah, that's awesome, man. I really like that. Chris, you mentioned that your first tournament you did, or at least early on, you were able to get to a pretty high level at a pretty big tournament. Was there a bell curve? Was there a learning curve that happened after that? And how long did you struggle before you started feeling like you were really up to par with long-term jiu-jitsu guys you were competing with?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I competed in the Nogi Worlds and I took third, and this was November of 2016. The Pans are always in March, so it was like 4 or 5 months later. And then I lost, and then I did the Worlds in June. And by that point I was like, okay, I'm just going to do whatever I have to do to be one of the best in the world at this. And so I did the Pans and I lost. I did another tournament. I did Chicago Open. I got choked unconscious. And then I did, another IBJJF Open or two, and I lost. I maybe got a bronze medal in one. And then I did the Worlds that year. This was a long time ago, 2017. And I lost second round. And then I hit a stride the following August. So like kind of what happened was the guys who were beating me all got promoted to purple belt. And then I stayed, I had to do one more year of blue belt because IBJJF requires 2 years. And in my first year, I kind of lost a lot. And then I had this fear because I started like kind of killing it the end of blue belt. So like I remember I did the Chicago Open again in 2017 after the World. So all of the guys who beat me were gone and they were purple belts. As I remember seeing them all at the tournament and being like, oh shit, here we go again. And then they all had different color belts on. And I was like, oh, thank God. So I won that. And then I won like double gold. And I was like, okay, all the guys who beat me are gone. And I just won double gold. And then like I went on kind of a winning streak. And then I like medaled in the Worlds and medaled in the Pans. And then by that point, I was like, okay, I'm like at this level now. And then the next year I got promoted. And I missed 1 year because I had knee surgery. So maybe that was like what slowed the curve a little bit. And I went to purple belt again, and I was with all the same guys. And so I was like, okay, I know I can do really well. And that was when I won my purple belt world title in 2019. And I think it was like in between blue and purple belt was when I was like, okay, I can kind of hang with any guy, besides like the good black belts. I was like pretty much, I was tapping black belts who were like not serious. I was tapping, all that. Like I was better than most of the guys in my gym just because of like sheer time on the mat. Like I was training twice or 2 or 3 times a day, 6 or 7 days a week, like completely kind of focused on jiu-jitsu. And I think when you do that, just like by sheer volume of mat time, you have to get good. Even if you're not like a world-class athlete, you just learn the sport so well. So it's like, I think I started 2015. By 2019, I was purple belt world champion. So like it's like probably like 2017, 2018 was when I kind of hit a stride and was like, okay, I am now a grappler. Like I'm not a wrestler, I'm a grappler.
Chris, in 2017, as a blue belt, you won $1,000 on a weekend by winning 2 divisions at reach worth $500 each. Would you say that experience was the catalyst to your pursuit of being a full-time grappler?
Damn, bro, you did your research. That's like, where'd you find that? Yeah, so I did this tournament. It was called Wanderlust. It was a small show that was in Chicago, and it was the first time I ever made money doing jiu-jitsu. This was like when I started to hit that stride. So it's like I did the worlds and I lost, and then I went and did this tournament, and it was like competing at IBJJF Worlds back then, and then going to like this cash bracket that was like all like Midwest guys. It was like competing on the biggest stage and then going to a local tournament basically. So like there was money, but it was a blue belt tournament, right? So they were still blue belts. They weren't like world beaters, and I had the most like high level experience in this bracket. There was like a couple guys who fought MMA who were tough, but like no one was really like focused on jiu-jitsu like I was. But that was a kind of transformative experience because I made $1,000. And at the time, like you could like, that's more money than you would get for winning a world championship, So like the fact that I made money doing jiu-jitsu was like the first thing that made me think, okay, maybe this can be like I didn't think it could be a career yet, but I was like, maybe it can be like a side hustle. Like maybe it could be like semi-profitable if I really put the time into it. So it was like a very transformative experience in terms of the way that I thought about competition. Because then I was like, okay, if I made money competing, now I can now I'm going to think about competition more seriously because there is like a real benefit to doing this.
We really are in such exciting times in grappling. When I was a blue belt, that was probably like 2009-ish. Dude, there was nothing like that. Dude, if I could have made $20 winning something, I would have been happy as shit back then. So it's so cool to see guys, this generation, being able to get these cool opportunities and then pursue full-time grappling like you have. And, speaking of money and the pursuit of grappling, another interesting fact about your story is you went $10,000 into debt to move to Texas to train at B Team and become a full-time grappler. And obviously that risk has paid off. But what was that like at the time, seeing those numbers climbing into the red? I can imagine the stress and anxiety and pressure on yourself must have been pretty intense taking a plunge like that.
Yeah, it was tough. So when I moved here, I left like I had a pretty good deal back in Chicago. I had like a job. I was teaching class 5 days a week. I was making decent money doing that. I had done, I think, 1 instructional by then, and it was okay, and I was competing, like I had done well. I took top 4 in the trials by then. I had beaten some really good guys, but I kind of stagnated. Like I kind of hit that point where I was like, I won't hit the next level if I stay here. And that was like a really hard thing to realize because I was like, I have to leave my family. I have to leave my friends. I have to leave my coach. I have to leave my training partners. Like super hard thing to realize when you're like, and I love Chicago. Chicago is like my favorite city. I mean, it's like a personal thing, but like I love the culture. I love the people, the weather, the summers are amazing. The winters I don't really like. It was nice to leave them. But like it was like leaving the place I grew up and going to somewhere that I don't really know to kind of pursue a dream that I don't know if I can achieve. Like I was like, if I move, maybe I can make it to ADCC. But I don't know. And even if I do make it to ADCC, I don't know if that's going to help me make any money doing this crazy sport. So like that, and when I did move, it was a year before I made it to ADCC. So it was like a year of just like doing the trials, doing okay, not doing as well as I wanted to do, improving a lot at jiu-jitsu, but there was kind of a lag between like the competition results and the skill development. And I think this always happens. Like anytime you improve your skills, there's going to be a little bit of a lag before you're able to demonstrate those new skills at the highest level. Like the skills that I hit in competition are usually the skills that I've like hit in training so much that I'm super confident in them. So like you don't like generally you don't like rise to the level of competition most of the time. Like sometimes you'll hit something in competition you've never done before, but most of the time you hit things in competition that you hit every day. So like I had this lag, and as I'm lagging and trying to get better at jiu-jitsu and like training every day as much as I can, I'm also like trying to pay rent. I'm also like, I was writing a lot, but like not super profitably at the time. Like doing the blog was decent. Hadn't done my book yet. I hadn't really, like I said, still done one instructional. So like not a ton of money coming from instructionals, doing seminars every now and then, but it's difficult to book seminars when there's no reason for someone to want to book you for a seminar. So it was just kind of like the debt was piling up, and I was like trying to pay it off, and I was like, there's no way, there's nothing coming in to pay it off. And then CJI happened, like the first CJI. And because of that, like I was like one spot out from getting into ADCC. And I was two, because I was one spot out on paper, but then somebody won a major competition and they got into ADCC before me, even though I had beat them in the trials. And I was like, wow, I can't win. And so they put this guy in, and I was like, damn, I'm the first alternate for ADCC. And then one other guy dropped to go to CJI. And then I got into ADCC, and that kind of helped a lot because I was able to pay off some of the debt with ADCC and seminars and stuff like this. And then I did well at ADCC. And that was kind of like the catalyst that took me from like an aspiring professional grappler to a professional grappler who is like actually able to make a living doing jiu-jitsu. And then the Wojcik thing happened, which was like completely out of my control and like not exactly what I meant it to be. And now it's like, CJI, obviously like career changing money. And then, here we are.
Chris, there's a lot of aspiring grapplers out there, aspiring professional athletes listening. What are your thoughts on the need to make sacrifices and take risks in order to achieve the kinds of things that you've been able to achieve? Because I think a lot of times younger people, especially, they have this kind of romanticized view of a full-time grappler, and they think, oh man, it's just like training all day and I get to just live through jiu-jitsu. But man, it takes a lot of work and a lot of struggle and a lot of sacrifice and risk taking in order to do what you've done. What advice would you give to someone young listening who has that goal, but might not understand everything that comes with it?
I think that one thing that I always think about is like, would you still be happy if you were injured? Or like, because I think a lot of people who I know who love, like I love training. Training is great. If I could just train all the time, I would. But the reality is like your life when you are not training, like you're only training, like even if you train 4 hours a day, like twice a day, 2 hour sessions as hard as you can, you're only an athlete for 4 hours a day. You're still a human for say you sleep, then you sleep 8 hours. Say your sleep is good, you sleep 8 hours. That's 12 hours a day still where you're not on the mat. It's like, are you happy in that time? And if it's like, if you're, you can't afford to keep the lights on, you don't have like good relationships with your friends and family, you are like, are you still happy when all of these other factors are kind of going like wrong or not according to plan? And I think about I thought about that a lot. So like I worked really hard on like improving overall quality of life. So like what that means, like obviously I train every day, train as hard as I can. I do strength and conditioning. I teach classes, all this stuff, but I still like try to focus on the off the mat stuff quite a bit. So I think that if you're like an aspiring professional grappler, the advice that I would give is like focus on on who you are off of the mat, because that is the only thing that's going to kind of like after your experience as a competitor is done, you need to have those like soft skills. You need to be able to coach. You need to be like, you still want to be a good person. You need to, have like sustainable income. All this stuff is really important. And I think that most people, when they romanticize the jiu-jitsu dream, they just think about winning CJI or ADCC or something like that. But nobody really thinks about like, like the movie ends, or the movie ends. Your life doesn't end when you stop competing.
Yeah. You definitely don't want to be someone that's doing great in a sport, but everything else around you is falling apart. That's not a good look. Chris, what do you think has been the aspect of your life that's been most impacted by your career choice?
I think that the biggest thing is like my friendships. Like all of my friends, except for like a few, do jiu-jitsu. And I think that the community aspect is huge. So like the fact that I have like this huge network of like people all over the world who I can like, reach out to, or, if I go somewhere to visit, it's like, oh, I can go here and see this person, or I can go here and train with this person, or I can go teach a seminar here. And I have like just access to people I have like a community all over the world from jiu-jitsu. And like that kind of built over time. Like I remember when I was young, I would see like, and I was like a blue belt and I was like first starting out, I would see these like world-class black belts who are able to like travel all the time and like, do seminars and do competitions and stuff. And I was like, that would be so cool. But I never really thought I would get there. It's like like an arrival fallacy kind of thing. Like I probably reached that point like 4 years ago, where I was like when I did well in the trials in 22, so 3 years ago. I reached that point where I kind of knew people from jiu-jitsu, like pretty much everywhere over the world. I had places to train in Europe. I had places to train all over the US, like I was doing seminars, I was traveling a lot, but like in my mind, I was still not like the guys who I romanticized when I was coming up, does that make sense?
It absolutely does. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There's kind of like a self-doubt that exists sometimes, that like, especially when you put someone on a pedestal, when you have someone on a pedestal, you always kind of in your mind, keep them a little higher than yourself. And I could see that. I could see where even when you arrive to the same levels of competition, or the levels of skill and even fame, that it's kind of still doesn't seem like you've completely arrived, just because there is that little deficit between you and the person you idolize a little bit.
Because you think that like if you achieve something, then you're gonna like feel like you made it or whatever. And like the reality, like it's like, winning, being a part of the CJI championship team, like for a long time, it was like competing in ADCC is the only thing that matters to me. And then I competed in ADCC and I was like, wait, now what? And then like, I was like, now I have to do CJI. And then I did CJI and then we won, and then it's like, you would think that after any of these things that now I will feel like I am like complete. But like the reality is like, there's all like you can't really derive, and it's like kind of becoming more of like a spiritual point, but like you can't like derive like satisfaction entirely from achievement, And I think that's like another big thing. Like in jiu-jitsu, we become very focused on like the goals, right? Because jiu-jitsu is like a pursuit. So it's like we're very focused on like improve. Even like as a black, like for a while, it was like getting the next belt or winning the next tournament. But like eventually you kind of realize that the goals and achieving them itself is not the only thing that matters. It's like also like the community that you build and the impact that you have on other people. And this stuff is equally, if not more valuable than what you achieve in competition, because like no one really cares. Like everyone watches the competition and we're like really interested in who wins, and we like people make their names and become heroes from competition. But like when the competition ends and everyone just goes about their day and they do whatever they want to do, and they're like they don't really think about you anymore. So like the impact that you can make off of the mat, I think, is more important for most of us, than the impact that we have on it.
That was very well said. Yeah, I really like that, man. Well, I think it's really cool, like how you've talked about how transitioning to Texas and taking these risks and everything that you've taken has presented you with more and more opportunities. Like you've competed on these big stages, you're able to get a lot of seminars, instructionals, things like that. Let me ask you this about when it comes to CJI. I know that there was a little bit of rough air there, because I know you were coming off of an injury.
Hmm.
And it wasn't even completely clear whether or not you were going to make it to CJI. If you don't mind, take us through the recap. What was the experience of CJI 2 like? And are you taking now a break from competing afterwards? Are you taking a bit of a breather at the moment?
Yeah, so I mean, so I competed in I mean, I've had a very busy year. So I did just kind of like the last year. It's like I did ADCC last August, and then I went straight from ADCC to like doing a. It was kind of funny. I did like ADCC in the T-Mobile Arena. It was like the craziest competition experience of my life. And then like 4 weeks later, I did a quintet in a random gym in Georgia, and like it was like but it was like still like just another competition, and then I went from that and I did I did a PGF, which was 15 matches over 5 days. And then I did EBI and I made the final. It was in Mexico. And then after that, that was the end of the year. And then I did Polaris and then I did WNO. And then in June, I did AIGA in Kazakhstan and I got armbarred in like 20 seconds. I fucked up. I made a mistake in the very beginning and I paid for it. And then, but like after that, it was like, it was funny. After I got home, my other arm started hurting. So I got armbarred on my left side. And then within a week of being home, my right arm just like had enough of all the training and competing. And it was like, I am angry that like you haven't taken a break. Cause I would take like a couple days after a competition, which is like kind of normal for me. But then I would be right back into training. And, like I trained with some very good grapplers. We trained quite hard. So like my body was just like, I need a break. And I was like, well, it's like 6 weeks, 8 weeks from the biggest tournament of my life, which is what everybody's saying. And so it was like, I was dealing with like basically just tendonitis, just overuse in my right arm. And it would flare up to the point where like I couldn't do a push up. I had no stability. And this was like my entire CJI camp was just like trying to make like it wasn't about peaking and building skills and like becoming the best version of myself. It was more about survival. And so it was like I would get better for a few days, then I'd be back training, but like training light. And then I was like, I have to keep my cardio up. So I was doing like a shit ton of cardio training. When in reality, I wanted to be like building size first because I was doing 88 kilos and I weigh about like 188, 190s. And, I'm a little small for the weight class. So the goal was to build size, but instead I'm like super banged up. So I ended up getting a cortisone shot just to do the competition. And I wouldn't recommend this to everybody, but like it was like the best thing that I've done for like like I like couldn't use my arm. I was like training really carefully, and then within 2 days of the shot, it was like nothing had ever happened. And so I got through the competition, but like I said, there's like kind of consequences. Like so, I'm at CJI warming up, and I'm like moving my arm, and I feel no pain, but my arm is like crunching as I move it. So I'm like, this is not right, but this is how many times are you going to compete for $1 million, especially in this sport? So we got through the competition, and then, winning was kind of like if we lost, maybe I'd be back sooner. But I think because I don't need to compete for like to make ends meet right now. It's like, I'm going to let my body heal because I'm kind of more interested in being able to compete over the next few years as opposed to like jumping into something right now because it's like a shiny opportunity. But yeah, like I had like a kind of odyssey dealing with this arm injury all summer long. And then now that it's kind of over, I've kind of taken a little bit of a break. I'm back training now, but like not to the same intensity, more focused on building new skills. And just like kind of rediscovering, enjoying being on the mat every day because like, when you're in these like intense camps where everybody's like super dialed in and your like body is just falling apart, it like jujitsu is not fun. It's like you don't really want to be there because everyone's going super hard. You can't really go super hard yourself. So you're, like I said, more focused on survival. So like the last few weeks, I've just been kind of training for fun, like doing seminars and like kind of trying to rediscover the love for jiu-jitsu. And then like I'll be back in competition probably, if late this year, more likely early next year.
Yeah, when you said you were taking a break, I didn't know how long we were talking. So I'm happy to hear that you're coming back this year still. And I'm also happy that your elbow's not holding you back too badly. That can, man, tendonitis is such a pain. It really is
crazy, man. It was crazy.
Yeah.
I had because to get the cortisone shot, they wanted me to get an MRI just to make sure there wasn't like some sort of like severe damage. Cause I had a shit ton of inflammation. Like my elbow was swollen. I couldn't move past like this point.
Oh,
And
damn.
so like I had this huge, they called it a synovitis, which is like just a huge pocket of inflammation in my elbow. And I did, and they thought I was like arthritic. Were like, we're gonna need to like test this. And I was like, oh no, I'm arthritic at 28. What's wrong with me? And then they did the cortisone shot, and they're like, actually, all your inflammation is gone now. I think probably just tendonitis. And I'm like,
Yeah. It's almost like somehow your arm is getting daily trauma. We can't figure it out. What do you do for fun?
yeah.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing why are you like, it seems like you're in a car accident every day.
Exactly. Like, what's going on, dude? Well, dude, it was just very exciting to see you perform in CGI too, man. And I'm happy to hear that you're coming back this year for more. It's always fun. You bring a very exciting technical styles to the table. It's always great to watch, man. Chris, I'll tell you what, we've reached about the halfway point of the show here, man. This is where I always play a game with my guest. This is a game called The Pummel. The Pummel is a series of random questions. Some of them are about jujitsu. Some of them have nothing to do with jujitsu. But if you're down to play The Pummel, I'd love to play this with you.
Yeah, let's try it.
All right, man. Question 1. What is the largest animal that you think you could beat in hand-to-hand combat?
Oh, wow. I don't know. I think maybe the thing is, I don't know. I'm not trained. I'm only trained to fight humans. I've never fought another animal. I wouldn't have the technical prowess. And I'm not like I have like a technical approach to most things like combat. So maybe I bet I could take out a cow though. Like if I got behind, you know.
I've seen ranchers take down cows, like when they need to brand them and stuff. If you can take it down, you could probably choke it.
Depends on the rule set, you know.
Right. Depending on the particular farm, how they have things set up there. Yeah. Yeah. No, that question's always fun because I always get wildly different. It's either like super conservative answers where people are like, oh, maybe a house cat, because like anything bigger than that, or it's just wildly confident in themselves, like, oh, I could totally take down a gorilla. And it's like, so it's always fun to see where people fall in that spectrum. Chris, if you found a genie lamp and you could make 3 wishes, normal genie rules apply. So no killing people and no wishing for more wishes. What 3 wishes would you choose?
Let's see. I wouldn't wish to be like rich, but I think one of the wishes would probably be financial. I think then I would wish for a like more like I would wish to never get injured, because if I could I think the biggest thing that's held me back in jiu-jitsu has just been like durability, like generally like it's like something that I have to really work for. So like I would want to be more durable, probably lots of money, and then I don't know. I would wish. Okay, here's what I wish for. I would wish to go back in time and talk to my younger self. That would be the 3rd wish.
Ooh, that's a good
That would be interesting.
Dude, you're the first one that said that one on the show. That's a good answer. I really like that. What have you ever had a supernatural experience? Any like ghosts, aliens, anything like that?
No, but if any aliens want to come find me, I would like to have supernatural experience.
Slide into my DMs. Hit me up. Yeah. Do you have any tattoos, Chris?
I have 1 tattoo on my ribs. I want to get like I said, I never had like actual money until this year. So I'm like, now I can afford a tattoo. I really like to like jiu-jitsu guys get so many tattoos. I'm like, who's paying for this? You know,
exactly.
Like, I pay rent though.
That's awesome. What is your tattoo on your ribs?
It says Audentis Fortuna Juvat. It means fortune favors the bold in Latin. I got it when I was 18. I took Latin in high school, so I wanted a Latin tattoo.
Nice. That's cool, dude. I like that. What's the worst job you've ever had in your life?
Oh, let's see. I think all the jobs that I had before I was working in jiu-jitsu, I really hated. I had the 2 worst jobs I would say are when I was in high school. When I was a freshman in college, I worked as a camp counselor, like a summer camp counselor for kids. I did not like that. I enjoyed the job was like unnecessarily stressful. I was like, I'm very stressed out about these children and their parents who are like making sure that I'm like the best camp counselor ever, and I'm being paid like $8 an hour. So that was like the worst job, like in terms of like how much work and how much stress for how little pay. And then I had a job before I went full-time grappling, like 2 years ago. That was I was like kind of doing ghostwriting in like a corporate setting, but like remote.
Okay, cool.
And it was I had some really big, like some big name clients. So you probably seen like some of their work on like Instagram and Twitter and stuff like
Oh,
this if you
wow.
scroll on those platforms. And I was like ghostwriting all their content, and I was like, these people had like 500K, a million followers, and I'm like doing the work for like not like a decent amount of money. Like this was when I started to like start working on my debt, was doing this, but it was like I'm doing like 12 hours a day of writing, which is like, it's not like a plus admin work. It's not like a normal 9 to 5. It was like a shit ton of work talking to these clients. And like some of these clients are quite rich and like very difficult to work with because they're like, they want this a certain way. If you don't do it right, then you're fired. They don't want to do meetings because they're like on that like Tim Ferriss grind or whatever. So it's like, I can't talk to you, but I'm supposed to write your work. And if I don't do it right, I'm fired. So that was like a pretty stressful one. Plus I was like managing, still training like every day, twice a day, lifting all the time. That was like a really tough one. It was like kind of like corporate ghostwriting. I do some ghostwriting now, but it's like I work with the client one-on-one. I make sure we're a good fit before we go forward, like that kind of stuff where I'm like, I'm in control and I don't have like two bosses to answer, because I had like the client and my boss at the time.
Oh, God.
It was just like brutal. I was like, this is not for me. So like now I like doing it, but like I kind of prefer like the like solopreneur ish on like me being the boss and also me being the employee is kind of like the speed that I've been enjoying.
That's awesome. Yeah, having to answer to multiple people. That's like that Office Space scene where like, did you get that TPS report? It's like 10 people ask. It's like the worst. Yeah. No, it's Chris, I meant to ask you about your writing. Connect the dots for me on that. How did you start writing, and how did it lead to you being a ghostwriter at sounds like a pretty high level?
Yeah, it was like dumb luck. Like
Really?
I always wanted to write a book because like every young person when you're like 20, you're like, I'm going to write a book someday, And then like the pandemic happened. And for whatever reason, because normally I was like the kind of guy who I was training in the gym twice a day, every day, teaching class every now and then, always drilling, always studying. And then COVID happened and I was like, oh, we might not be able to do jujitsu for a long time. And so I was like, I'm going to write a book now because I want to, and I have time for the first time ever. And so I started writing a novel in the quarantine just to try it. And I wrote the whole thing. And what I learned from that experience, like, is a terrible novel. You will never see it on any bookshelves. It's not good, but it's done. Or like the first draft is done. And so what I learned from that was like I built the writing practice. Like I started doing it every day. And then like I was like, okay, well then I'm gonna I'm gonna like be more diligent with my journal. So I've kept a journal since 2015, but like I started doing like book writing in 2020. I wrote my first novel that has never been published, and that kind of made me like, I started to view myself as a writer. And so then when it became like the pandemic started easing and it came time to start finding a job, because I finished college around this time during the pandemic as well, I was like, maybe I can be a writer as a job. And so I started like researching how to become a writer, how to make money as a writer, and like kind of went down the like kind of the snake oil salesman rabbit hole for a little bit of like, if you buy my course to become a writer, you will become a writer that makes $10,000 a month or whatever. And then really it's like, you're making no money. You're just contributing to somebody else making $10,000 a month.
Right.
But
Yeah.
that kind of like helped me like there was some value because like buying the I only bought like a couple writing courses, but like buying the writing course made me invest more in time in my writing. And so I started doing like a blog. I was reading a lot on a site called medium.com. I'm not sure if you're familiar. It's like a blog.
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
So I started blogging on Medium in 2020. And I was doing like one article a week, and then one article a week became two, and then two articles became three, and then three became four. And then like sometimes I was doing 5 articles a week on Medium. And then as I was doing this, I was also like freelance writing was like my first job out of college. So I had like I had like 11 clients at one point, like just doing social media, doing blogs, doing newsletters, doing whatever I could. So I could, just like pay rent and like try to make a living doing writing, like, the romanticizing the doing what I love kind of dream.
Yeah.
And then from that, I created a newsletter, and it became the Grappler's Diary, which is like kind of like my main blog now. But at first it was just like Chris's newsletter, and I was just posting once a week. And then in addition, I would just take one of my Medium articles and just reshare it to my newsletter. And then I kind of like, I enjoy the like kind of the ins and outs of the writing business, like the digital writing world, I think is interesting to me. And so I just kind of like worked on that, and I've just been doing it ever since. And I just have been consistent for a really long time with it. Like there's not been any like single moment where I like struck gold, it's been just like a little bit every day. Like I did some this morning before we hopped on the call. I did, do some, like whether I'm traveling for a seminar, even if I'm on vacation. My fiance always gives me a hard time because I'm like on vacation. She's like, "Why are you working?" I'm like, "I can't not do this," So it's one of those things I just been doing for a long time. And I did Quora. That was how I became a ghostwriter. So this is kind of a weird story, but I read a book called The Art and Business of Online Writing by Nicholas Cole. I read it in 2022 at the end of the year. And the book said, if you publish an answer on Quora every day for a year, I promise your life will change. And I was like, sounds good. Sounds pretty easy too. I can do that if it's going to change my life. Because I was already writing a lot. And so I started doing Quora answers one a day, and I made it 6 months before I took a day off. It was like I took a day off for trials. That was the only day I could do it. But I'm doing these Quora answers, and about 4 months in, so it was like I always say like, and this is kind of a good lesson for like building an audience. Like my first 70 answers had like a cumulative of 2,000 views. So that comes out to less than 100 views per answer. But then my 71st answer had like 60,000 views.
Nice.
So it's like that just, and then the 72nd had like 20,000 views. It was like, just like I started to get in the algorithm. I started to kind of blow up. I kind of figured out the game a little bit. Like I was like, oh, if I say something shocking in the intro, then people are going to click the like read more button, and then they're going to read more of the post. And then if I really hold them and I put a link to something like, you like this post, check out my blog or whatever, I would do that. And it was like free. And then one day and I was freelancing a lot. So I'm sorry, I'm kind of rambling here.
No, you're not. No, you're not at all. Please.
I was freelancing a lot. Like I said, I had 11 clients. I wasn't making that much money. And I think I was making like $1,000 a month with my 11 clients, like $100 each to do like a blog or social media. And then like I was teaching kids class, and that was how I was getting by at the time. And then this guy messaged me on Instagram, and he's like, "Hey, I love your work on Quora. Do you want to ghostwrite for my site? I'll pay you $250 per article." And I was like, $250 an article? He's like, and you can do like 4 to 6 a month. And it ended up being like 4 to 8 a month. So I went from like $1,000 for 10 clients to potentially that and more from one client. So I said yes, and I quit all my other clients and just went all in on ghostwriting. And I was like, this is what I do now. And that was kind of how I became a ghostwriter. And then I started to kind of get connected. I started to build other clients through just like word of mouth, or I did the corporate thing when I was, trying to pay off my credit card, but like just doing a bunch of different work for different clients. And then over time, like you just kind of learn the skill, like just like jiu-jitsu, like you spend a lot of time doing the skill, you get better, you get more connected. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, this is a job now. I said that was kind of what happened with the writing. It was like, it just started with just posting on the internet. And then it became like now I've got, like my book over there. I've got like, the newsletter has like, I've got like 5,000 people reading the newsletter every week. I've got like my Instagram for writing has like 16,000 on Instagram, which is pretty good for literally just words, so yeah. Instagram, and then like just building it into a business. Like I always like focus on more on like making it into like a funnel as opposed to like shock value. Like it's not like tabloids. It's like kind of like has that like indie feel, or at least that's what I shoot for.
That's so cool, dude. That's really awesome. Chris, has the existence of ChatGPT at all soiled the online writing industry?
So it's interesting. I think a lot of people worry about this, and rightfully so. It's like, oh, this thing can create so much content so fast. I think that ChatGPT is a excellent tool for writers, but like if you ask, because I tried to use ChatGPT to help me write a book, because I ghost wrote books for a minute too. And I tried to use ChatGPT to help me ghostwrite the books, and it was horrible. It was like the worst book I've ever, like I had to edit everything. I was like, it's just better if I do it myself. Now that being said, when I was doing Twitter content, I was ghostwriting Twitter content. A lot of that was AI. So like a lot of the shit that I read on Twitter is just like I read it and I'm like, I can tell a robot wrote this. I don't know if everyone can because like people don't read Twitter content. And I've been like on the other side where I'm like using the Chat GPT or the Claude AI prompting and like doing this to get the like generate the most value. And like we would use, but like the prompt, like most people like will just be like, please Claude or please Chat GPT write me this post. But the reality is, like, we would have like it'd be like, here's my client, here's his brand voice document. Here are 5 example posts that he wrote that he likes. And please write me something using this outline. So it's like this super long, like, formula that you have to put in. And then even from that, you have to edit it still. So like, we're a long way from ChatGPT or AI replacing real writing, but you're definitely seeing it more for social media. Generally, like books, I feel like in like real products are like they've got to kind of have that personal touch, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, this is all really cool because I really do appreciate, I have a deep appreciation for writing. My dad was actually a technical writer his whole career. And I think that's where I kind of got it from. But like for me, writing's like, I can't even enjoy a movie. I don't care how great like the effects are. I don't care how great the actors are. If the story sucks, the story sucks. Like if the writing's bad, I just can't get into it no matter how good everything else is. So it's writing, it holds a special place in my heart. I really do appreciate people who do it well and really commit to it. So that's awesome, man. Chris, getting back to the pummel, what do you think is what is something you wish you were better at in life besides martial arts, outside of martial arts?
Yeah, jiu-jitsu, guard
Because
passing.
everyone says that, so I have to put that caveat.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. I think my thing is like I wish I was better at compartmentalization. So like I'm like I tend to be a little like bingo brain. Like I get like shiny object syndrome.
Yeah,
So I
sure.
think that being able to like say no would be the thing that I'd want to be better at.
That's a good answer. I like that. What do you think is the worst injury you've ever had?
The elbow was pretty bad, but that was timing. Like if I just took 2 weeks off when it first happened, I would have been fine. But I couldn't because it was camp. I think the worst injury I have had, um, I had a really bad. I have a like L5 issue, like every guard player does, that flares up every now and then. That's pretty bad when it's bad. Um, but I think the worst injury I had was when I was a blue belt. I almost quit jiu-jitsu because I had this knee injury. Like my knee was locking and then unlocking, and it would be like during it was just torn meniscus, but like it would pop back and then it wouldn't show up on an MRI. So like I would like have my knee pop. I'd be in excruciating pain. It would pop back and it would be like kind of better. And then I would go get an MRI and the doctor would say nothing was wrong.
Oh,
You know?
and you're paying for it. You're paying for the MRI.
Yeah, you're paying for the MRI. I
Oh,
got 3 MRIs and they
that
were all, the
sucks.
first 2 were inconclusive. And then one day I finally like just popped it and it was horrible. And that was when they found the torn meniscus. And it was funny because it was like February of that year. This was the year that I kind of started to hit that stride at blue belt. This was like the year after that. And so I did the pans and my knee gave out, like just popped and locked, and I was done in the semi. So it started popping in the round of 16. It popped once. In the quarterfinals, it was popping in and out the whole match, you know? And I was like, I just got to get this pans medal. And so I was just eating it and like trying to like stay on top. And somehow I did. And then in the semifinals, it just popped right away. And I was like, it was the worst of all of them, you know? And so I couldn't like retain the guard and I ended up losing. And I was like, okay, I'm not competing again until my knee gets better. And then I remember a few months later, I go back to the Worlds and my knee was doing pretty well. And then this guy puts me in 50-50, tries to knock me over, and the knee just pops again. And I was like, okay, I'm like really not competing until it gets better. And then it was like another few months of popping and locking and pain all the time. And then one day I'm training and it just goes and it's like just had enough. And then when it's done or when the surgery is done in October, so like September, I popped it really bad. Surgery was in October. I was back training in like 3 weeks because it was just a meniscus removal. So it was like I had like 7 months of just agony and then like surgery repaired it in 3 weeks, you know, but that was probably like the worst injury I've had.
Yeah, that sounds like a rough one. Dude, that's got to be so frustrating too to have to drop the money to get the MRIs done and then they can't find anything. It's also you have to just start drilling leg locks in the waiting room at the doctors and just like let it pop and then limp into the camera under the camera or into the machine. Oh, dude. What do you think is your favorite bad food to eat?
Pizza.
Pizza. Describe your favorite pizza.
Uh, like a Chicago tavern style. So like Chicago, we have the deep dish, and
Yeah.
we're kind of known for the deep dish, but like tavern style is the preferred style of many locals. So it's
Yeah.
it's like the kind of like a bigger pizza that they cut into squares. That's like my preferred, and thin crust. That's my preferred.
Nice. Yeah, my whole family's actually from Chicago. I moved to Atlanta when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we're all from up there. What's your favorite spot? And do you have a favorite pizza spot in Chicago?
Got a few. We like Candlelight. I used to like. There's this place that Pequod's is like one that I recommend for everybody.
That's my favorite. Yeah, yeah.
And then there's another good place that I used to go um, when I was a kid. Though I lived in Rogers Park, and there's a place called JB Alberto's, which was like right up the street from me, and I used to go there all the time. So that was like that place has like a sentimental value for me. And then like Lou
Nice.
Malnati's too. I went to high school with a kid who his dad or his grandpa was Lou Malnati, so that was another spot that's great.
Oh, no way. Yeah, Illuminati's is like the classic, like tourist. Like if you're visiting, you usually stop there
Mhm.
first. But yeah, Pequod's is the one that I love the best, man. But yeah, I do miss good pizza up there. It's the deep dish style is just so good.
That's like the
Um,
best. The hardest part about Texas is there's no good pizza.
oh, really? There's nothing?
There's like there. I mean, there's some okay Texas pizza, but it's not the. It's like when you know what really good pizza is. It's like same thing. My fiance, she moved here from San Diego, and she's like, "There's no good Mexican food here," because like, San Diego has the best Mexican food in the country. So Texas is like got some good Mexican food, but it's not the same. Pizza is the same. Like there's some good pizza, but it's not Chicago. Or like I'm sure New York is the same way for like people who are from up there.
Yeah, yeah. That surprises me that there's not good Mexican food in Texas because it's so being so close to Mexico itself. But
Well, like I'm sure some people like I don't mind it, but like
yeah,
my girl, she's like, this is horrible. This
it's
is
like
not
no
the
way.
same. And like, there is really good Mexican food. I agree, but I'm like, for me, it's all the same because I don't have the palate for it.
Yeah, I can't speak on San Diego because I've never been, unfortunately, but I've had Mexican food in LA and it's legit. It was very, very, very good. Um, yeah, Mexican foods. I actually live in Brazil. We don't have good Mexican food here. Like I've been to there's like three different restaurants and they try, but there's just something missing. It's not quite the same thing. That's one of the foods I definitely miss. What's your most hated food? What's something you cannot eat no matter what?
I don't have. This is why weight cutting is hard because I don't have a food that I really don't like. I kind of think walnuts are dumb. Like I don't like walnuts. Like they taste like you shouldn't be eating them. Like I'll if it's the only thing I'll eat walnuts or like on a dessert, like a carrot cake or something, where it's covered in sugar. But like straight up walnuts, I think are stupid.
I have to make a shirt now. Walnuts are dumb. I love it. That's great. That's great. Dude, what about what do you think was the scariest moment of your life?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. I think I mean, there's like different kinds of scary. There's like physically scary where you feel like your safety is threatened. And then there's like existentially scary. Like, having that knee injury at Blue Belt was like existentially scary because it was like right after I fully committed to doing jujitsu for the rest of my life full time. And then I was like, oh, my body's like, never mind. So like injuries can be existentially scary or like projects not going well. Thankfully, I don't have too many physically scary moments. Like maybe watching some horror movies kind of scare me. Those are pretty scary. Yeah, they like the after effects are scary, but like, not too many physically scary, but like definitely some existentially scary moments. Moving here was existentially scary as well, like stuff like that, but not a ton of physically scary moments.
That's good. Yeah, it's better. It's better to have existential stuff that don't end up being anything too serious than like a near death experience for sure. Chris, who do you think's your all time favorite grappler?
I think 2016, 2017, Keenan Cornelius is my favorite
Good
grappler.
choice. Yeah, good choice. Good choice. What would you say is your biggest phobia?
I don't know. I don't have a ton of phobias. Um, I'm not like a huge fan of bugs.
Okay.
Maybe that could be a phobia, but I don't have like a serious like if I see a bug, I'm okay. I just am a little shocked.
Yeah. You just keep them over there. Yeah. You
Yeah,
keep
yeah,
your
yeah.
distance.
Like
Yeah.
I don't hate bugs, but I don't like bugs.
Okay. Right on. If who's your favorite superhero?
Batman.
Batman, good choice. I argue he's the most jujitsu superhero. He's got no real superpowers. He just trains his ass off. He's got money, but he trains his ass off. He uses his money well.
I think every grappler wants to secretly be Batman.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt. I do. Shit. There's also men from the animated series. There's a clip of Batman landing a sweet knee bar on a villain. I don't know if you've seen that, but
Yeah, it's cool seeing like grappling stuff in like fiction. I think that's cool to see. Like John Wick, there's so much jujitsu, but like, Batman, obviously a lot, probably more examples. But like, I remember when I watched John Wick, I was like, oh, that's a body triangle, like stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure. No, the Batman thing was cool too, because that was like in the 90s. That was like a 1996 cartoon. So that's before like even UFC had really blown up completely, and jiu-jitsu wasn't really very well known. So it was cool to see him using grappling back then. Cool. If you could have a superpower though, what would you choose?
I'm trying to think what superpower would improve my jiu-jitsu the most. I think if I could be like Mr. Fantastic, I would.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
Like if I could like bend my legs and like you could come up with like new entanglements for leg locks or like upper body attacks if you could entangle them and like manipulate the joints that way. So that would be mine.
Yeah, you'd be untouchable for sure. Like you'd just be unstoppable.
Guard retention would be wild.
Oh, bro, could you imagine? Oh my God, that would be unreal. What do you think is your favorite video game?
I don't really play video games anymore, but I used to love like FIFA, like soccer back in the day. I was a big soccer fan growing up, so that was like my favorite. Or like GTA was fun. I played like GTA 5 was the last one I played. I don't know how many more they've made, but that was the last one I played.
Nice. And final question for the Pummel game, Chris. If jiu-jitsu didn't exist, let's say jiu-jitsu and riding didn't exist, what would you be doing with your life instead?
If I could be like a race car driver or a baseball player, nice. I would always want to be around sports. Like when I was a kid, all I wanted to be was a professional athlete, and my favorite sports were like NASCAR and baseball. Like I was a Cubs fan, like diehard, and like I used to like my second favorite video game when I was a kid was like the NASCAR video game. So I loved like, and then we would go karting and stuff. And then like I've been recently watching a lot of like Formula One racing. So like if I could be like a Formula One driver or a baseball player, that would be like my dream outside of grappling and riding.
Excellent answer. Excellent. And Chris, that was the final question for the Pummel game. Congratulations. You win. You got your double underhooks.
Hell yeah.
Chris, we were talking earlier about your jump that you made, kind of your leap of faith to Texas, and how you had to take some pretty big risks financially, and just all the anxiety that comes with moving to a new place and going to a new pursuit, a new chapter in your life. There's lots of aspiring grapplers out there listening right now. And one concern that a lot of them might have is whether or not they're training in a team that aligns with their goals to be a professional grappler on the biggest stages. And a lot of these guys are scattered all over the US in various gyms, some big, some small, but they probably look at teams like B Team and New Wave and Atos and wonder if that's the kind of place that they should really be. What are your thoughts on that? Like, in your opinion, can someone reach elite levels of grappling while training in a place that maybe doesn't have a huge competition team or a lot of professional grapplers within their walls?
I definitely think you can. I think people are still doing it. I think if you look at like guys like DeAndre Corby training over with Standard, if you look at Paul Ardilla, both those guys are good friends of mine. So that's why I think of them. I know plenty of guys who own gyms and are like Devontae Johnson owns a gym academy. He just trains with his students and he's a world beater. So I think that you can certainly achieve a high level of competition without being in a world-class room every day. I think that for me, I did it out of convenience because I was kind of at this point where I was like, do I want to open a school or do I want to pursue competition full time? Because I was like 26 and I was doing well. And I was either going to keep doing the exact same way that I was doing back then, or I was going to have to move and make the jump. And for me, it was like, I want to see if I can do this. I also want to experience something new. Like I didn't just move for jujitsu. That was the driving force, but it was also like I want to pursue a new experience and like, take a chance and bet on myself and all this stuff. But like you can definitely achieve a high level of competition without training in a world-class room. I think that it's harder though. Like, so for me, when I was training in Chicago and trying to compete at the highest level, I would train at 4 gyms every week. I was training at my gym. I was teaching at another gym and training with the students. I would cross train at several gyms. It was like 4 gyms a week at least. And then I would travel. So I would go visit B Team for 3 days. I would go to Toledo and train with Dante Leon for a week. I would go to California and train with J Flow. Like I was traveling so much just to get the looks of like the top level guys, because you do need those looks in some way, whether they're manufactured or like maybe you don't have access to world-class guys, but a guy who wrestled D1 or something. So you're getting your wrestling looks from somebody like this. So you either need to have, and now like I literally live like 5 minutes from B Team. I can just go to the gym and I get those looks every day. And that's the only place I have to go if I want to. Like I still enjoy cross training just because I like seeing friends and, exploring and like stuff like this. But if I wanted to just train at B Team and only train with those guys and I could still do that and get the best looks in the world. So I think that wherever you're training, you can reach a high level of success, but you need to get the looks of the top level guys, whether it's visiting those top level gyms or manufacturing those looks in some way. Or you can move and, there's obviously a whole other bunch of risks that come from that, but it is, can be worth it.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense what you're saying. Like I could see where if you're in a place where everything you need is just in one place, that would obviously cut a lot of the work in half. It sounds like if you were in a place that's not a super competitive team, like you said, you'd have to have a lot of like extracurricular effort put into making sure that you're getting what you need. So that's a very good argument for if you are serious to move to a team where everything just exists in one place. Sounds less demanding for sure. Chris, in your own experience, what gaps do you think have been filled for you as an athlete by training at B Team? Is there anything significant that you can think of that you can really credit to B Team for helping you with?
I was a pretty good leg locker before I came to B Team. So I don't think like my leg locks, most of the leg locks that I do, I learned from my original coach, Jeff. I maybe have hit them on better guys now because I've been at B Team, and maybe like my transitions are a little bit tighter because I've had like higher level defensive looks. I think that my wrestling has improved a lot from training at B Team, just because like we wrestle every day and I have guys who are better wrestlers than I had access to back home. My escapes are way better because when I first came down, I was getting beat up a lot. So I was getting submitted a lot. So I was learning to escape. And then kind of like a off the mat thing is like professionalism and confidence are 2 things that I'm way better with now, because you're training in a room with guys who are professional grapplers. When you want to be one, you're just going to carry yourself more professionally because you see what they do and like you mimic, like guys like Nicky Rod who are like, and confidence as well. Like someone like Nicky Rod has made me so much more confident. Like going into CJI, he was like, we're going to have a great payday. We're going to kill all these guys. We're going to win this tournament. And I was like, I hope so, and then like, but it's like having somebody like that around you who's super confident is going to make you a better athlete, because like their confidence is contagious, whereas like when I was training more with hobbyists, I would say that like most hobbyists don't have that, like, I'm super confident, like, in my jujitsu. Most hobbyists, just because, like, they're training for fun. It's like jujitsu is hard if you're, for everybody. But, like, if you're doing it casually, you're not going to view yourself like you're the best in the world. You're going to view yourself like you're doing it casually. So when you surround yourself with some people who are doing jujitsu and believe that they're the best in the world, you're going to start to believe that from yourself. And that's going to make you, even if it's not true, it's going to make you more confident. It's going to make you doubt yourself a little bit less. And this is going to, when you act, you're going to act with less hesitance.
That's good, man. That was actually a pretty unexpected answer, man. I think a lot of times when we think about the benefits you'd get from being in a place like that, it's all mostly skill. It revolves around skill. But you're right. Like I could see we're having some of the confidence of these guys that are real high level and experienced rubbing off on you as you're coming up. That's something I never thought of before. That's very interesting.
Dante is another guy who I trained with a lot, who's super confident, and like, just having his confidence, being around that was really good for me. And then like Nicky Rod is the same way. There's a few guys who I know who are like this, who are just super confident grapplers. And I think that for me, like, if like I don't really feel anxiety, but sometimes I don't feel as confident as I should. So like being around people who are super confident makes you more confident, like surround yourself with people who have traits that you want to have in yourself.
That's excellent. I really like that. Chris, there was something you wrote about not long ago that I really appreciated. I want to make sure I brought this up while we were here. It was the idea of losing heroically. Would you mind elaborating on what that is and what that means and how it can be helpful to someone who's currently losing miserably rather than heroically?
Yeah, I mean, so what I think about losing heroically, I think one thing that comes to mind for people is like everyone says, okay, to lose, you have to like leave it all on the line. And I agree with this, but I think that we can take, when we think about leaving it all on the line, it's not just like showing up and competing and trying really hard. It's like you want to, in order to, the worst feeling that you can have after a competition or anything in your life is regret. So like if you have somebody, or if you have an experience and you leave the experience thinking like, I wish I had done more. And I think about regret a lot too. Like, I don't want to, it's not just like, I wish I had, like, we are all, I hear people say, like, I want to live with no regrets. And that is not like, you need to feel regret so that you can learn to like to perform and to prepare in a way that is going to like lead to fewer regrets, like, so I competed in, Aiga in June and I got armbarred really fast. And before the match, I was not in a good place mentally. I was just kind of burned out from competition, kind of like, didn't really want to be there. I was not in, like, I didn't have the best attitude. And so what I realized I had like a ton of regrets from this match. And what I realized from that experience was that like, I need to, if I'm gonna compete in CJI in 8 weeks after the Aiga match, and then my arm was banged up, and I was like, all I'm gonna do is the absolute best I can with what I have. So what I did was I invested in like doing a mindset coaching course. I was like super dialed in with my reading and my journaling and my writing. I was training as hard as I could every day. I couldn't train as hard as I wanted to on the mat because of my arm injury. So then I'm doing cardio. I'm doing my strength training. I made sure that anytime I could get in to see my PT, I did that. So I did everything off the mat right, so that when I showed up to CJI, even if I couldn't like train physically, because we tend to think only about the training, I try to make it, I wanted to make sure that I went into that competition, I wanted to feel like I did my best when it was done. So losing heroically is when you go into a competition or anything in your life and you are prepared to fail and you are comfortable with failing. So like my mindset coach, Mindset Mike, we did this thing before the competition, before CJI, where he had me like write down all my fears about what could happen, and then I had to burn the paper, and it was like kind of sick, I was like,
That's
okay, here
cool.
we go. So we like burn the fear, so like there's no more fear because you burned it away. So I think that's what I think about when you lose heroically. It's like you burn the fear, and you're ready to just like go into the competition and let it all go.
Chris, one thing that we all go through in jiu-jitsu, especially as we're coming up in the ranks, is just the hard days. How do you learn to appreciate the hard days in jiu-jitsu for people out there that might be just feeling like they're totally in a slump right now?
I think one thing that I think about is like one thing that I tell myself that works well is that like a hard day on the mat is better than a good day doing most other things. Like a good day of like work in a 9 to 5 is not as fun as a hard day of jujitsu. So I think that I think the answer to hard days is just gratitude. So like if you just have gratitude for what you're doing in jujitsu, or I mean even anything else, but like, if you just have gratitude, that is like a good foundational pillar to live your life around. So like anytime you're experiencing challenges, anxiety, like if you can come back to gratitude, you're going to be in a position where you're able to kind of continue going through. Even like when I had my arm injury, I was like, there were moments where I wanted to like give up because it felt like I couldn't keep going. It was like, what is the point of like just dealing with all this pain and like, not performing as well as I want to, and like having to limit myself. And it's like when you come back to like the gratitude for like, I want to be I'm just grateful I'm grateful to have this struggle is kind of something that I'll tell myself.
That's great. I like that. Yeah. I mean, 'cause we all get to the point where, we get burned out in jujitsu sometimes. Like we sometimes look at it resentfully, especially if we're sore or injured or in a slump. And, yeah, it's not to sound like a relationship podcast here, but it's nice to find ways to keep that spark alive, because it can be hard to keep showing up when you're just really feeling like you're just dragging along for weeks and weeks or months on end. So
The other thing too is like I always tell people, it's like if you don't want to be here, don't come, because then you're just gonna hate it more. Like if you're really like I remember I was training with a guy who's like a world champion, and I was staying in his house, and we were like doing like a week of training, and after one day he just didn't come in, and the guy who was he like stayed in bed all day, was watching TV. And then I didn't know him super well, so I asked one of the guys who was teaching. I was like, "Hey, is he okay?" He's like, "Yeah, he just needed a day off. He didn't want to come in." It's like, if that's a guy who's a world champion who's taking a day off because he needs one, it's like you can also take a day off because you need one. It's fine. You're not going to be worse that much, and your relationship with the sport will improve, and then you're going to attack the next day with excitement instead of resentment.
yeah, it's funny. Like in my own journey, I found that when I take a week or two off, if I'm feeling really overwhelmed and burnt, I'll take a week off, and I swear when I come back, I feel better. Like I just feel like my mind is just a little bit more refreshed. I've healed up a little bit. Some inflammation's probably gone down, and I just feel better than when I left. So yeah, taking breaks. I love that you pointed that out, and that it's okay.
Like the
to
same
do
with
that.
Isaac Newton used to say that like if he had like a problem that he couldn't solve, he would just sleep on it, and then the next day the solution would magically appear. And it's like you need to have that like just disconnect from the work a little bit, whether it's jujitsu or I guess physics or whatever you're doing. Isaac Newton was a physicist, right? I'm not being
Yeah. No. You're right. You're right. No. Yeah, he was some kind of science guy. Yeah, no,
science or whatever.
No, definitely banging your head against the wall to try to get through problems. Not usually the way. It's good to take breathers. Chris, when you earned your black belt in 2022, do you feel significantly different as a black belt than you did as a brown belt?
I don't know. I feel like I was thinking about this the other day. Like so a black belt in 2022, it's 2025. And I got the black belt in 7 years. So like 2029, I will have been a black belt for as long as I have been training. At this point in time, I've been a black belt longer than I was any other belt. So I kind of just feel like this is just the experience now. Maybe people like the one thing about being a black belt that is different is like other people view you as like an authority figure or like a lot. And it's like I'm kind of always learning myself. I don't really know everything. So I think that the main difference from being a black belt versus being any other belt is just perception, the way other people perceive you.
Well, Chris, if you feel that way, imagine how I feel, dude.
I think everybody should feel that way. I think like you should never, like if you reach a point where you think that you know everything, you've just stopped learning. You don't know everything.
For sure. Yeah. Let me ask you this, man. This is kind of an interesting one. Something else that you've written about is the idea of beating the game in order to escape it. And you mentioned that by earning a black belt, you also free yourself from the burden of the belt chasing game. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what that can mean for like everyday practitioners who aren't avid competitors. Because obviously for athletes, it just means that you now jump into the abyss and start competing as a black belt and try to win titles there. For other people, it means opening a school and becoming a teacher. But for students out there that don't want to compete or that don't compete and don't have aspirations to teach, what can that pursuit then become for them?
Yeah, so this comes back to, there's a quote from Naval Ravikant, who's like a tech guru guy, and he said the reason to win the game is to be free of it. And I think that this is a very interesting quote. I tweeted one time, I said that like if your only goal in jiu-jitsu is to get your blue belt, you need to reevaluate the way that you set goals. And people got super mad at me. They were like, no, like, and the point here that I like getting your blue belt, getting your next belt is a good goal, but it is not a sustainable goal. So you're going to be if you're focused on the next outcome, and this is like we were talking about with competition as well. Like if you only focus on the outcome, you're not actually learning how to set goals better. So like when you get your black belt, you're just free of the belt getting game. Like I got to get my first degree, in April. And it was cool. And I was like, oh, nice. I got a little piece of tape. And it was funny because I was in Chicago doing seminars and I stopped by Jeff's and we did some training. And he's like, now Chris has come all the way from Chicago. We're going to give him a piece of athletic tape, But it was kind of more of a funny moment instead of like this big deal. And I think that like getting belts is phenomenal. And like getting my black belt was one of the happiest days of my jiu-jitsu career. It was like really special. But when you focus too much on the belts, you kind of lose sight of what's important. So I think that like when I got my black belt, I didn't care anymore about getting belts. Like getting my brown belt was kind of special, but it was like also a surprise. But by the like in between brown and black belt, I became hyper focused on skill development and like competition success at the time. And this was like really good for me. And I improved, I think, the most between brown and black belt as I did at any other belt. But when I got my black belt, I was like, I didn't care about getting a black belt. Like if I didn't get my black belt that day, I wouldn't have been unhappy with like jiu-jitsu. Or if I didn't get it, if I got it sooner, if I got it later, it wouldn't have mattered to me. I was not like worried about the belts. And I think that like if you can free yourself from the game, you can kind of like the rat race of chasing the belts. You just think about like you can kind of make the game your own. So like you can focus on the skills that you want to build and learning jiu-jitsu the way that you want to learn it, and like being more invested in the sport. And now what I will say is like not everybody thinks like that. And this is something that maybe that's why people on the internet were so mad at me. Like not everyone is like into jiu-jitsu for the sake of just pursuing the skills. Some people like the achieving the next goal of getting the belt. But the problem is, even if that's like why you're in jiu-jitsu, when you reach that top belt, the black belt, you have to find a new source of motivation to continue showing up, because nobody, like if you like show up to kiss ass to your professor, so he'll give you your stripes, get your belt, one day he's going to give you your black belt, and then you have nothing to like, there's no reason for him to reward you for showing up. So you need to find a reason, within yourself to keep showing up. And I guess that's kind of the point I was trying to make there.
No, that was really well said. Yeah, it's kind of funny how like when for people who are non-competitive or people who don't want to open their own school, getting the black belt can be kind of like the dog that caught the car finally. And now it's like, okay, what do I do now? Like I caught the thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's like you were saying earlier. You mentioned that you said now what earlier. It was a thing that was kind of dawning on you at one point. And so it can be hard to find what that new source of motivation is. But I think that I guess long-term skill development and for a lot of people, it's also just social connections. Like for a lot of people, jiu-jitsu is how they build their social network. It's how they make friends in life and stuff. So I guess you just have to lean more into the organic side of things and not so much about chasing particular goals anymore.
I think now I'm very process over outcome. Like I'm more interested in like the day to day of like, learning, like, and like I enjoy like create, because I'm kind of into the like CLA stuff right now. So I'm like kind of like I enjoy creating like little games that I can use to build new skills. I enjoy going to the gym and seeing my friends every day. I enjoy like traveling and training with new people and making new connections. And like this kind of stuff is so much more fun to do this than like the game stuff is like kind of just like normal training, but like, connection with like other people, new friends, stuff like that is, and like even like it's funny, like BJJ Fanatics, like from instructionals, like I have so many people who reach out with questions on stuff that I've showed or whatever. Like that kind of stuff is way more valuable than like getting a stripe on my belt or getting my next belt. Like just being able to impact people and connect with people is so much more fulfilling than like a personal achievement.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because that's a huge one I think that people should keep in mind, is that if you don't want to open a school, fine. But man, you can absolutely be a really valuable resource within the room of wherever you train. You've gotten to the point where you've earned the black belt, so you have the knowledge. And there's people coming up that you have all these gems in your pocket that you might not realize is super like transformative to someone else in the room that might be stuck on something. So yeah, being able to give back to the room, I think is another. I'm glad you said that, because that's another really important thing people can look to when they're trying to figure out what their why is now that they've reached the black belt and don't want to compete and don't want to open a school. So yeah, very well said, Chris. Chris, there's no way I can have you sitting here and not pick your brain on ankle locks, bro. So let's talk a little technique here. During CJI2, my friend Brandon McCatherine mentioned in his commentary that there's like new technology with leg locks. Something he said that I thought was funny. What do you think have been some of the advancements we've seen in the ankle lock in recent years? Do you think it's been more mechanical changes? Have the positions of attack changed a little bit? Is it a mixture of both? Share your thoughts on that if you don't mind.
So the positions of attack have certainly changed. I think that the first guy who I saw really using the ankle lock at the highest level was Mateusz Jasinski. So with his like shotgun Aoki lock stuff, he kind of beat me to the punch there. Like I learned it from Jeff, and Jeff, my coach, he was using it like before. He learned it from like, old school guys. Like it's not like new technique, but it is new applications of old technique, essentially, is what's happening. And Mateusz was the first guy to hit it at ADCC in 2022, I think.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Before that, we didn't see very many Aoki locks in competition at all. And Mateusz, he hit them a bunch in the trials, but like I think he was kind of in the same boat. Like he just hadn't had that breakthrough on the big stage yet. He had been hitting ankle locks in high level competition. I was kind of in a similar situation where I was like hitting ankle locks in the trials. Like I remember I did one trials, I hit like 3 ankle locks, and I would get some pretty significant finishes and like would do really well with them. But like no one who hit the ankle locks was hitting them at ADCC. Nobody was hitting them at major competitions. It was mostly heel hooks. And then what we saw, Mateusz, I was able to use one at ADCC to kind of get to a heel hook. I would use them. I used it a bunch at PGF. Jet Thompson is another kid who has really good ankle locks, who's been kind of coming up. Diego Pato, I think, he's probably got the most high level ankle lock finishes in competition right now. And basically what you're seeing is like some difference in the position. And then also too, there are kind of 2 new like technical innovations. So like the Aoki lock, and I'll put the Woj locks as a reverse Aoki in that same category. And then there's like side ankle locks and short Achilles are the 2 kind of new technical developments. So you have ankle locks where the foot is, so like if this is the foot and this is the heel, you have ankle locks where the heel is exposed like this, and you have ankle lock where the foot is turned the other way. So you have heel exposed across the chest, and then you have heel exposed in the opposite direction, like kind of like a outside heel hook foot position, but a ankle lock mechanic. And so we've got this like side ankle lock, and then we've got Aokis that have become kind of the 2 main ankle locks that we're seeing. Straight ankle locks, I don't think we're really seeing any more frequent than we used to see, but we're seeing these 2 variations. And then also like a innovation of a short Achilles where the knee line is no longer required. So like if you look at the old leg locking instructionals, there was a lot of emphasis on the knee line and like securing the knee line and using different tools to have better control of the knee line. And now we've broken those rules. We don't need knee lines anymore if we have Achilles grips, because if you're going to attack heel hooks, you do need some sort of connection to the hip and the upper part of the leg. But for an ankle lock, if you have a strong grip on the Achilles, there are many different positional controls that you can use. So that's kind of the my technical analysis on the evolution of ankle locks.
Yeah, no, that is a big thing you just mentioned, because I think for a long time so many people were so focused on that demarcation line of the knee, and now with these variations, it doesn't quite matter anymore, like you said. What do you think are some of the reasons that, say, like the Woj lock and the Aoki lock and these other variations have now surpassed kind of your traditional outside Ashi ankle lock that we've seen traditionally being used? Is there anything in there that inherently makes them harder to escape?
Easier.
Yeah,
it's easier. Like heel hooks are hard to get. If someone or heel hooks or traditional outside Ashi ankle lock, these are very hard to get. Versus like a straight, like if you can get an Aoki lock, like you don't need to be that good to finish it. We're seeing purple, like for a while we would see purple belts and blue belts win tournaments with black belts in it because of heel hooks. And then now we're seeing purple belts, and because I think the lower belts kind of drive the innovation, because they're not so set in their ways. They're going to do whatever it takes to win. They're going to be like, I'm not as skilled as this veteran black belt, so I need to find a position that I can finish him. And for a while that was heel hooks. But now the high level guys are so good at defending heel hooks. So there needed to be like a new way to kind of get ahead of the game. And that is where the ankle lock came in. So like, it was just like, yes, like now really good black belts can also defend heel hooks, but really good black belts can't defend Aoki locks. And honestly, like the cool part about the Aoki lock is like, if you can get to an Aoki lock on anybody, you can break their ankle and even put danger into their knee. So it's a super powerful submission. So like now what's becoming the thing is like, the really high level guys aren't just good at defending heel hooks. They aren't just good at defending ankle locks. They're hard to entangle their legs. So that's going to become the next evolution, I think, that we're going to see in the next few years with this like leg lock game.
Wow. This is the kind of stuff I nerd out on, man. I love seeing like the trends and how they impact the next trend, and how they all connect together. And it always seems like there's like an arms race to the next thing, and then when everyone has their skills developed there, it's on to the next thing. It seems like it's a never ending. It's going to be a never ending thing, which is exciting. Chris, what do you think are some key points that you like to typically focus on when you're teaching students how to escape ankle locks, like once they're under attack?
I think that the biggest thing that I teach is safety, like, because these ankle locks are very dangerous. So like I even in my like leg lock instructionals, I make a safety. I don't know if everybody else does this, but I always make a safety section, because I'm like, you will get hurt if you don't like tap properly, if you move the wrong way. Like if you're training these and you're working on your defense, you have to always be ready to tap. So like when we would do one day, we called it leg day, where we would do just like leg lock rounds every day, or every round for one day. We do 50-50, we would do outside ashi, we would do cross ashi, we would do double treble. It was like the whole session was leg lock rounds. And you would like listen in the room and you would just hear tap, 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 just everyone's tapping all the time. And this is in part because people have good mechanics, but this is also because like safety is the most important thing with leg lock defense. So like you have to know how to stay safe, and you have to know when to tap. And then kind of the next phase to that is going to be finding positions where we cannot get tapped. And those positions are going to be generally like if your foot is planted flat on the mat, you cannot get leg lock. So putting weight into your partner, putting weight into your foot is kind of the safest way to defend leg locks. And then working out, passing, taking the back, whatever you'd like to do. But one is safety, because like you need to know how to be safe, because if you get injured, then you're going to decrease your tolerance for future ankle locks. And then you're going to be more like ankle locks are like, even just any submission in jiu-jitsu, it's like if you get broke there once, you're more likely to get broken again. So don't get broken and then weight your foot.
Yeah. You know a technique is effective when I ask what's the escape, and the first answer is, well, properly tapping. You have to know how to tap and when. I love it. Guys, listen, if you're interested in learning how to break ankles and how to protect your own, I highly recommend you guys check out Chris's instructional with us. It's really good. It's one of our best sellers at the moment. It's called Wojcik the World, a guide to the future of ankle locks. It's available right now at bjjfanatics.com. Chris, in closing, sir, what are some of your goals for the rest of 2025? What are some things you hope to accomplish this year?
Yeah, so I have a lot of seminars coming up, so like traveling quite a bit. So kind of just like I said, I kind of felt a little burned out going into CJI, and like kind of just rediscovering that love for training and competition is like kind of the main goal. So like traveling a lot, doing seminars, meeting people, enjoying jiu-jitsu. And then if I can, I'd like to compete towards the end of the year. So if somebody who runs a show is listening to this and wants to book a leg locking black belt for like November, December, send me a message. But that's kind of training, enjoying jiu-jitsu. And then if I can compete, that would be awesome. But, if early next year is when it happens, that's okay too. But like, that's kind of it.
Well, folks, unfortunately, we're fresh out of time. Chris, I've really enjoyed this conversation, my friend. Thank you for taking the time to be here. You have such a cool story and you have really great insight to share. And man, you're welcome back on the show anytime you'd like to come back. I'd love to have another conversation with you in the future.
Thank you so much. This was awesome. Appreciate you having me.
Of course. For anyone out there who wants to keep up with Chris, it's real easy to do so. He's very active on Instagram. His handle is Chris M. Wojcik. That's Wojcik. Make sure you're following him on Instagram. Also check out on Twitter or X or whatever they're calling it these days. It's the exact same handle. His website is thegrapplersdiary.com. Guys, especially for up and coming students that are trying to absorb as much knowledge in the game as possible, I can't recommend his Substack enough. It's very good. He's got lots of articles. He contributes to it all the time. So go to thegrapplersdiary.com and check that out. If you guys are ever able to drop into B Team, he teaches there, he trains there, so that would be an amazing experience. If you can't drop in and train with Chris directly, you can learn from him anywhere in the world here at BJJFanatics.com. He's got 2 great instructionals with us. The first one is Wojcik the World, which we talked about in depth a little earlier. The other one is called Don't Stand Up. It's an open guard focused instructional. So whatever aspect of your game you're working on, whether you want to get better at leg locks or better at open guard, Chris has got you covered at BJJFanatics.com. And that's going to do it for this episode, everybody. I really appreciate you tuning in. Please stay tuned for the next episode of the BJJ Fanatics podcast.